Fujifilm has just announced the new X-T5 mirrorless camera, the successor of the X-T4. In today's video, we're going to be going over the changes the camera has seen internally and externally. Hey all, and welcome back to Camera West TV. My name is Adam, and this here is the new X-T5. While at first glance, this may look identical to the X-T4, there's actually some pretty big changes, and even some smaller ones. So the X-T5 has shrunk in size compared to the X-T4. And personally, I didn't realize it until I had them actually side by side. But after taking some measurements, the camera is actually 5 millimeters less wide, 2 millimeters less deep, and a millimeter less tall. While these aren't huge numbers by themselves, the difference is noticeable. The camera is also 50 grams lighter than the X-T4, and that even is just a little bit noticeable. I do need to note that this is a pre-production unit, and because of that, we're not actually allowed to show you any photos or videos from it. But stay tuned and get subscribed, as we'll be putting our proper review of the camera when the time comes. Since we're on the subject of the exterior, let's talk about some of the more noticeable changes from the X-T4. The top of the camera is mostly the same, but the exposure comp dial is a bit bigger. The dials themselves are also flat on the sides rather than being sloped. And the exposure dial also feels and sounds softer when turning it. The back of the screen goes unchanged except for the screen. The three-way tilt screen is back, so if you had planned on using the screen for some self-filming, you're going to need an external monitor or consider picking up the XH2S or the XH2. Turning our attention to the bottom of the camera, the battery grip connector is gone. This likely means there will not be a battery grip for the camera. The camera still does take an MPW235 battery. The camera still has the same input ports as the X-T4, which is the mic, remote, micro HDMI, and USB-C port. The doors on the ports are vastly improved over the X-T4. When they open, they no longer just kind of flap around, they feel a lot more solid. It's nice to see that the X-T5 still uses dual UHS-2 SD cards, and the grip on the camera is actually a bit more pronounced with a hard edge rather than a slope. And in the hands, it actually feels quite a bit better, in my opinion. Now let's talk about the new specs for the photo and video modes. The camera has the new 40.2 megapixel X-Trans5 sensor that was recently announced in the XH2. And this is a huge jump over the previous camera, which only had 26.1 megapixels. And a couple other features to make its way over from the XH2 is the 160 megapixel pixel shift multi-shot feature and the max electronic shutter speed of 1/180,000th of a second. That's a lot. Now with the new sensor, we have a 6.2K video at 30p in 10-bit 422. Fujifilm has also included the F-Log2 profile that helps the camera achieve 13 plus stops of dynamic range. And you can also record in Apple ProRes RAW or Blackmagic RAW if you record externally. There's also been a bump in image stabilization as well. The X-T5 is capable of 7 stops of Ibis versus 6.5 of the X-T4. Well, this is the brand new X-T5. And if you're interested in picking up one of these, you can head over to camerawest.com or hit the link down in the description below. And if you want to see our first look of the new 30mm macro, you can hit the link right here.